She doesn't even go here.
I'm bi, actually.
Excuse me. Could the ugly, untalented gays please report to the principal's office?
Hi, I'm Kurt Homo, and I'll be auditioning for the role of kicker.
Hey!
I knew you were gonna do that.
Hi, thank you guys for tuning in. I am Luke,
And I'm Alicia.
and you are watching Not So Straight Nerds. And we have a really great episode for you today.
The movie of the year, your next best picture, best actress, best actor. It's gonna be an Oscar
It's gonna be
sweep.
great.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Electric
State.
State.
Before we get into this, I will probably say the Electric Slate a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about this title. I keep wanting to say the Electric Slate. I know it's State. I've had to write it out for our notes so many times. But I feel like it says something, but I can't even get the title of this movie right.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, Alicia, how are the vibes today? We're starting bright and early. How are the vibes?
I'm slowly becoming awake. I have this cutie here, like an orange.
It's an orange. She doesn't have just someone off screen.
Yeah. So we'll see. And I have an energy drink, and let's see how it goes. It's our first episode we're filming for today. We're hoping to film a lot. So the next few videos, I should hopefully be in a better mood.
Yeah,
We'll
you'll see us come to life and then
Yeah. You'll see
deteriorate
us-
as we go.
Yeah,
you'll
you'll see
get
us,
to watch the arc.
Yep. You'll see us in these outfits a few times. And the posters. We have new posters. Well, 2 out of 3. We switched out Coraline for A Complete Unknown. And then, of course, we still have our Captain America one. He's having his moment. And then we switched out Clueless for Mickey 17. So that's another video we're planning on making today. So not in this episode, but
Spoilers.
spoilers. It's probably going to be out the same time this one is out. So go listen to it. Anyways.
Yeah. And I'm doing great. I'm just happy to be here.
That's great for you. I'm happy for you.
And so, going into our non-spoiler talk of The Electric State, which is now streaming on Netflix.
Yes, if you haven't heard about it, it's a movie that has gained a lot of talk because its budget is $320 million. You heard that right. And it did not go to a single theater, not a single one, not for a single day. It went straight to Netflix. And it was pretty bad. I feel like most people have agreed with.
I think that's a pretty unanimous take.
Yeah. And not just because of its budget, although that I think that's certainly a factor that deserves to be there. But, yeah, it's starring Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt. So there you go. So we thought we would just at least, like, read the summary if you haven't seen it. I mean, I can't say that I would recommend seeing it.
I will say, while I'm so excited to talk about this movie with Alicia and you guys today,
Yeah.
we are not suggesting that you need to watch this
No,
movie. If
absolutely
you feel
not.
inclined to watch this movie, power to you. And let us know what you think.
Mm-hmm.
However, this is not an endorsement.
No. This is not a movie where you, like, need to watch for literally any reason. For anyone involved, like, for any of the, like, the directors, like, no. There's no reason. It's not connected to anything. If you happen to read, I think there's, like a graphic novel it's based off of, I want to say. Sure. I mean, it's not a good adaptation from what I hear.
From what I've heard, if you're interested in the story, the graphic novel is probably the way to go about it.
Yes. Yes. So anyways, here's the summary if you haven't heard about it. So, The Electric State is this is not our words, by the way, is a spectacular adventure from the directors of Avengers Endgame set in an alternate futuristic version of the 1990s. Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things and Enola Holmes, Damsel, all things on Netflix, by the way. That's
It's interesting.
pointing out. She stars as Michelle, an orphan teenager navigating life in a society where sentient robots resembling cartoons and mascots who once served peacefully among humans now live in exile following a failed uprising. Everything Michelle thinks she knows about the world is upended one night when she's visited by Cosmo, a sweet, mysterious robot who appears to be controlled by Christopher, Michelle's genius younger brother, whom she thought was dead. Determined to find the beloved sibling she thought she had lost, Michelle sets out across the American Southwest with Cosmo, and soon finds herself reluctantly joining forces with Keats. Is that how to say it?
I think so, Keats.
Yeah. Again, testament that I don't even remember if I said that right from the movie. Keats is played by Chris Pratt, of course, from Guardians of the Galaxy, Jurassic World. You probably know him.
Mario.
Parks and Rec, like a low-rent smuggler, and his wisecracking robot sidekick Herman, voiced by Anthony Mackie, Captain America.
Oh, another great reason to have his poster up. I never even thought about that.
Yeah. And as they venture into the exclusion zone, a walled-off corner in the desert where robots now exist on their own, Keats and Michelle find a strange, colorful group of new animatronic allies and begin to learn that the forces behind Christopher's disappearance are more sinister than they ever expected. And honestly, that sounds way more interesting than the movie was.
I agree.
That actually kind of sounds pretty cool. And yet it's just not.
The thing is, I think so much of this
Cool.
movie is just poorly done, and it introduces interesting ideas, but I think the way it executes them in the overall theme and tone of the show, you're doing great. She's eating that cutie over there. But the overall themes that it's trying to display and the tone of the movie, I think really just makes everything feel very unsuccessful and kind of
I agree.
confusing. A lot of counteracting.
It's just like very overall
forces.
not well made. Like, you have such a stacked cast and nobody feels like they really want to be there.
Mm-hmm. And they just throw a bunch of names in here.
Mm-hmm.
They're in here for like 5 seconds. And you're like,
It's
oh my
like-
gosh, has that guy been nominated for 2 Oscars?
I feel like
What is he doing here?
right. I feel like, well, obviously that's where most of the budget went. And then I feel like the Russo brothers were like, hey, you know what worked for us on the Marvel movies? Having all the Avengers. So let's just have a bunch of big names, and then of course our movie will be successful. And it's worth noting that that did not happen here. It did not have a high viewership. At least like The Gray Man, and we'll get into more of this later. The Gray Man had, I want to say, like twice the amount of viewers in the first week or so. This one I think did go number 1, but
It was number
it only had 1 more million views than Adolescence, which is a big show right now. That one I didn't see any advertisement for it. I mean, the budget isn't posted, but like surely it wasn't anything close to this.
Yeah.
And it's such a different vibe, and that just became popular because it was so good. People started talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's worth noting that these two projects with very different budgets and very different marketing campaigns had about the same views. So I don't
And
know.
let
It
that
certainly
be-
did not
I
work
think
for
that
them.
does bring into a conversation that Netflix, and like especially in the streaming space, they don't want to have that. If you have good quality content that can stand and speak for itself,
Yep.
already you can see that making its money back.
Mhm.
And then imagine if you advertised it, how much that would bring back.
Exactly. Mhm.
So that I think is very interesting.
I don't know, man.
And then
I don't know.
also, I think Adolescence is going to do great for Netflix because I can't imagine a world where that's not a huge Emmy contender.
That's true.
So it's going to be really well received and hit on like the 2 big things that streaming projects have to hit to be successful.
Mhm.
So great for that show.
Yeah, which we're definitely going to get into that more later because we're going to have a question of like, does Netflix even care about what critics think? Like, do they sometimes care? Do they always care? Like, do they never care? We're definitely going to talk about that later. But let's talk about the spoiler part of the movie.
Real quick. Okay. So if you were at gunpoint and you had to pitch this movie to me, what would you say?
Do I have to? Well, I guess I'm at
Is that what you would
gunpoint.
say when you're at gunpoint?
Do I have to?
And then I say yes, and then
shoot
you
me.
say.
Just shoot me. Okay. If you like Millie Bobby Brown or Chris Pratt, they're both in it, and they're both the main
They're
characters.
both there.
They're both there. I'm not gonna say they did great because they didn't. It has robots, and the robots look cool. I'll give you that. And I'm really struggling here. Let me look. Oh, it has Ke Huy Quan.
An Oscar winner.
As an Oscar winner wasted in this movie. But he does voice work, and that was another one of my points, is that the voice work is, I would say, overall pretty good in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that long of a movie, and it's free
Yeah.
if you have Netflix.
And you know what? That's
So-
the pitch for Netflix movies.
If you need something, if you need something that's going to garner discussion and create a sense of community and hatred of this movie, watch this movie.
So many people are going to come together.
But don't
On the
waste
legacy
your
of this
time. Watch
movie.
Adolescents
That's the
So-
key takeaway.
or
That's
The
pitch.
Residents. The Residents is another show that just came out right now, and it's not bad.
Interesting. So, would you
yeah.
like? I feel like you kind of gave all of your pros already.
Yeah, my 3 pros are the robot design, which I'll admit I liked. It was cool. Ke Huy Quan, the fact that he was in it. Period. I just love his work. I love him as a person. He seems so bubbly and fun.
And I think it continues to be fascinating to look at his career post-Oscar.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? As long as he's having fun, because
And he's getting paid for this one especially.
No, exactly. As at the end of the day, and that's like the Rachel Zegler thing with Snow White. At the end of the day, she has a paycheck and she can move on to better things. That's why she was in Shazam. She literally admitted, "Why are you in this movie? Because I need money." And you know what? Period.
And you would too for a check.
And good for her. So good for him, because at least he's getting work and he's having fun, and he already got an Oscar. So if he just wants to make little silly movies and be recognized, then I think that's great for him.
I
As
think
long
it's-
as he's happy.
you
As he's happy.
On the note of Ke Huy Quan, okay, besides his, I would say after his Oscar, what do you think is the best role he's had?
Ooh, let me see. I'm gonna look him up. Do you want to move on to your pros while I look him up? Because I think he's also on your pros
Oh,
list.
absolutely. I would say I'm just gonna go ahead and throw.
Oh,
It
Loki, obviously.
out. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Although I
And
haven't seen American Born Chinese, which I've heard is fun, so I need to watch that. And then he's in Zootopia, apparently. I did not.
yes,
I
he's going to
forgot
be
about that.
Zootopia 2. He's going to be
Yeah.
the snake character.
Oh, right. You told me that.
And that's going to be a huge thing because in China it's the year of the snake.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to push that really hard. And on Zootopia has a great chance at making $1 billion,
Yeah.
especially if he can make that character sell, which
That's
his voice work is amazing.
Oh,
as
he's
we
great.
even see here.
And you know what? That's where I feel like he could really find his footing, is some great voice work. He has such a unique voice, and he's so fun. I just feel like he could have a lot of fun with that. I hope Zootopia 2 goes well for him. That's another thing. That's why I wish the Oscars had like a voice acting category, because that could
agree.
be a really cool opportunity for him. But oh well, maybe one day. We'll
I
see.
completely agree. But
Anyways, I guess I could do my cons now,
here, how
since
about
I
we keep,
found
we'll,
that
we'll
fast.
we'll get all the positives out of the way
Okay,
first. So I'll go to
'cause
my
the
positives.
cons are really where we're gonna have the discussion.
So I think, like Alicia, I think the robot designs throughout this movie are really cool. I think you can see a lot of 90s aesthetic into the designs, and they have specific jobs, and how would they do those specific jobs, and the fun, quirky 90s style designs of them. So they're very campy, very
Yeah.
Jetsons.
Yeah.
And I think they're really fun. I think the voice work for them works really well. Like I said, I think those two things are the strongest part of this movie.
Yeah.
So those are always fun. You get to see Giancarlo Esposito? Giancarlo Esposito? Let me make sure I'm saying his name right. I feel bad that I have to check because
I
he's so
will-
talented.
Well, I will say this is not the worst movie. I don't even think the
Esposito.
second worst movie I've seen this week.
No.
Now, I don't know about what is released.
Well, no.
I don't know. But it's certainly the most expensive one.
It is. It is the worst movie I've seen with a budget this bad.
Yes, that is true.
With this big.
Absolutely.
But Yeah, Giancarlo Esposito plays Marshall. He's kind of the sheriff that hunts our main characters for most of the movie. And he plays exactly the kind of role you'd expect from him.
Yeah.
And he's good at it. So
He has found his... I don't know what to call it, but his element, I guess. Like,
his typecast.
Yeah, and he does it well. There's plenty of other people that are typecast and don't do well.
I agree.
So,
I agree. And then I also put Ke Huy Quan and voice work overall.
Yeah.
A lot of great voices here.
Yeah.
And then my other pro, Herman. One of the two main robots in our ensemble is Herman, and he's really fun. He's voiced by Anthony Mackie, who does great work. He is the most personality out of all of the robots, and he's there for the longest time. So, honestly, if there's any reason to not turn off your screen, it's because you have Herman on it for most of it.
I
Which
agree
is
with that.
really cool. And then visually, they have some really interesting stuff that we'll get into with his character specifically. And then he's just really funny. I think you can say what you will about Anthony Mackie. He has some very fun. He can give really funny line deliveries.
I agree. He's very charismatic. So,
So very fun. So do you wanna get us started off with these cons?
woo. Well, obviously the budget. I put it in all caps. The budget. Question mark. Question mark.
The budget.
It's just frustrating. I understand how and why it's happened, at least at first, because you can't possibly make Avengers Infinity War and Endgame and then not have work with fat paychecks after that and
Sure.
budgets. I understand that is a pipeline that makes sense. However, this is not their first, nor is it their second film. I actually don't know how many they've had since. I know they've had Cherry, which wasn't reviewed well, I don't think, and then
There
The
was
Gray
the Gray
Man.
Man, and I don't think that was reviewed great, but it did really
It did do
perform.
numbers, yeah. But this budget is just crazy,
Yes.
first of all. And so it's beyond both of those. But it's not even their first film to get bad reviews. It might be their second film or so since Endgame to, like, really flop, I would say. I don't really know how Cherry did, and I actually didn't watch either Cherry or The Gray Man. I just started watching
did
their
watch The Gray Man.
filmography. Okay.
And it was very forgettable.
Yeah.
Like,
They
I
also-
constantly can forget that Ryan Gosling is the main character of that movie.
Right. Didn't they do another one too, like an action movie? I forgot what it's called.
Let me take a look.
But it's
Not
just,
producer, directors.
especially, I think a good example to compare it to is what Greta Gerwig is doing right now with Narnia with Netflix. Post Barbie, of course she was going to get success too, or at least she deserved to, and so I'm glad she's getting it. So I'm glad she was handed the Narnia universe. And she has demanded with Netflix, because she has the power to do so, to have those movies release in at least some theaters. I don't think it's going to get a wide release. At least that's not the discussion
I would
I've
ballpark
seen.
it around the Glass Onion rollout.
Yeah, which that didn't have a lot of theaters, but I think that's an opportunity for people to see it in theaters because, of course, they're going to want to. I mean, it's Narnia and it's a Greta Gerwig movie. People are going to want to see this in theaters. I don't know if they would have seen Electric State in theaters, to be honest with you, but
I would be very surprised if they would. But I
Yeah.
think that would be interesting, especially with how low box office is this year.
yeah,
I
that's
actually
true.
think that would have been an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, I don't know. Millie Bobby Brown has been on the big screen with like the Kong movies, I think, right?
Yes, in Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla X Kong, the second
Right.
one. I forget what the spin-off title of that is.
And then, of course, Chris Pratt has been on the big screen. So yeah, that would have been interesting just to have those two as leads, and then with the Russo brothers, like directors of da-da-da, being in the trailers before movies, maybe. But it didn't happen. But Narnia, it's going to happen. And I'm glad she fought for that. She deserves that. And I think Netflix needs to consider that more. I wish they advertised Glass Onion being in the theaters more. The only reason I knew about it is because I loved the first Knives Out. And so I had researched and found out that it was going to be in a theater. It was a theater like 45 minutes away from me, but
Were you able to see it in theater?
yes, me
Oh,
and my
that
parents
must
saw
have
it.
been
And
awesome.
it was good. It was a good experience. I'm glad we saw
I
it in
love
theaters,
Glass
so.
Onion as well.
Yeah,
It's not the
yeah.
first, but
No, but
that is
it's
still.
solid.
I love that whole franchise. I'm so excited to watch Wake Up Dead Man this year.
Yes.
Oof.
That one in White Lotus, like just anything where you have a cast that people are interested in, I mean, make a billion of them.
Yeah,
I'll
I love
watch it.
recurring franchise, like recurring ensemble franchise.
Yeah, and you have the one consistent person, Benoit Blanc, the detective.
And such a fun character to play with every single time.
Yeah, and Daniel Craig is great too. I mean, after you have James Bond, I mean, everybody wants to see him on the screen, so that's very fun for him. I don't think Wake Up Dead Man is going in theaters though.
I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't, but I'm still super excited for it regardless.
Yeah.
But I just looked on their IMDb page. So the Russo brothers have only directed 3 movies since Endgame.
Was it the 3?
And it was
I
Cherry,
named?
The Gray Man, and now The Electric Slate.
Okay.
State. See, I warned you.
Yeah.
So
So it's not like it's the first right off the bat, and he's still getting these budgets, and this one is bigger than the other 2. So it's something to talk about. I understand when movies like Avatar, I feel like there's very, very few movies that can have a big budget and justify that. And I don't think this is one of them.
I think a part of that, with some of their previous work, you have to recognize that they were given a budget because they proved they could work in that space on budget and perform really well. And then they're doubling the amount of stuff they have to work with, and the actors and all of the legacy that comes into that. And then it becomes, okay, and there's a whole IP that you're working with that has already been successful. You've been successful in it.
Yep.
So we have reason to believe you will. Would you say it correlates that because they've done MCU movies that they could inherently just do the same thing with a huge cast of name talent in just a basic blockbuster-esque action
Well,
movie?
we've already seen that they can't do that.
They can't.
And it's interesting because it's like they're being thrown into this process that has already been proven to work. I mean, not that Marvel has always had successful movies at any point, not just the past few years. From the beginning, they've had hits and they've had misses. But you have the Avengers films, and I think they've been proven to get people to show up. Ensemble movies. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine, you had both of them. People showed up. You had
And
the
promise
Guardians
for
movies.
more characters.
Yep.
Even look at No Way Home, and that made $2 billion, and that's because you're bringing in all of these huge characters that people really want to see.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's important that those movies were also, well received. So that is another thing, and I do think that's important, but also I think inevitably people were going to show up anyways. I think it helps that they were also good movies, but even if you look at Multiverse of Madness, which that's not our favorite, but I feel like overall probably had more positive reviews than negative.
Sure.
But you have
'Cause you know
Doctor
what you
Strange
have to give that
and
movie?
Wanda.
It is so beautiful to watch.
That is true. But the whole point is that you have Doctor Strange and Wanda. Winter Soldier, you have Bucky, and you have Black Widow
Captain America
and Falcon.
And
in
he
that
was
movie.
debuted in that movie.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's true. And then Civil War, basically an Avengers movie. And so it raises the question of, were those movies always going to be successful? I don't know. I think they deserve some credit, of course. But I don't know. You can see that it's not working for them outside of Marvel. So
something I wanted to ask in the same vein. So do you think even, I would say in the MCU and outside, well, not that you'd super know, so you'd only really have the Electric State to compare it to, do you think they have a directorial style or kind of vibe that feels specific to them?
The only other movie I've watched of theirs is Yumi and Dupree. I've started from the beginning as far as their available to stream movies. That one, it didn't have a lot of development with the characters, I would say. So maybe that's their, this is not a good style to have, but I feel that way about the Electric State. Is it just feels like, no, I don't care about the characters because they don't have depth. Marvel, you have these established characters with established personalities, and I believe the Russo brothers were saying in comparison to the graphic novel that they weren't given a lot to work with. But you can't complain about that if you don't go on to create something to
Sure.
work with.
I agree.
Which I know they weren't, I don't think they were the writers, but still, like, you're the directors, you can do something with that, and they didn't. And so why are you complaining that you weren't given a lot to work with if you're not going to do a lot with it? You didn't do any better.
Yeah.
So, which I didn't read the graphic novel, so I don't know how true that is.
My understanding is that they've
Really?
changed a lot.
Yeah, yeah. But it's, even if the characters weren't very developed in the book, you didn't do much better. And so stop complaining. I don't know. It's just silly. So maybe that's it. I started going through their filmography, which I'm going to continue doing. I want to see Cherry and I want to see Gray Man. I just kind of wanted to start from the beginning to see if there's any progression there.
Something else I think would be really interesting is they are also really big names behind the show Community,
Yes.
which
and that's,
I have watched all the way through and is very hilarious.
Okay, because people were saying that's probably why they were able to get into the Marvel universe, and then of course, successful movie after successful movie, they were allowed to continue. So, I need to watch that.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's interesting because that is also a big ensemble show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's slow to kind of build character. You have your main character, and then they slowly start expanding on the other characters on that show. So I think it'll be interesting to see how you feel, like, sitcom ensemble to Avengers ensemble
Right.
kind of compares.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting with, like, the witty banter that the Avengers are so known for, like MCU dialogue and that whole discussion. I think you can see elements of that from Community,
Okay.
which I think is interesting because Community is so the type of show to be like, oh, look at how all of these Avengers talk the exact same way,
Mm-hmm.
which I think that's ironic.
Yeah. I don't know. That is interesting that I feel like that hasn't been an element they've used well in at least the Electric State. That's
Definitely
the only
not
one.
the Electric State.
What about the Gray Man? Do you remember any of that from the Gray Man?
I remember the basic plot of it. I remember Ryan Gosling a little bit. He's just kind of...
Was there any like banter though? That's what I'm asking.
I remember Chris Evans tried to be banter heavy, or like the wisecrack,
Mm-hmm.
wisecracking bad guy was like, "Hey, I need to do this. You need to die. Let's just make this happen." Like it's very his character from Knives Out,
Mm-hmm.
but worse.
Mm-hmm.
So
'Cause
and
you
the
have a worse
mustache.
director
Oh,
and-
his mustache.
Mm-hmm. I do remember seeing pictures of that. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. And actually, we talked about lack of depth of characters, and that was actually my next point on
Yeah,
my
all of that was
launch
just off of
list.
your first point.
Oh yeah, but also, I said did nothing with its cast. It's kind of the same thing. Wasted its cast, didn't give depth to the main characters or any character for that matter. And then I wasn't really a fan with the weird color grading. I understand that it was consistent and they had a style and it's a post-apocalyptic world, but like I wrote down here that you can have a pretty world that's post-apocalyptic. And my example was Mad Max. Those movies look great, and it's post-apocalyptic. So this simultaneously looks so orange and so gray at the same time. It's like their skin is so orange, and yet everything else is so gray, which is very interesting to me. It just seems so lifeless, and I understand that was probably intentional, but it doesn't make me want to watch it for 2 hours. So, sorry. You can still have this, like, bad world, this depressing world, and not have me depressed watching for 2 hours. It's an eyesore at some point. So, I don't know. Especially with all that budget. Like, you had the capability to make it better, and you just chose not to.
I think the budget makes so much of the problems with this film that other movies could have completely inexcusable.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like you clearly had the budget to do this and you didn't.
Yeah.
For every point. And then we both wrote this one down, but the AI president.
And to be fair, I don't think have you seen anything confirming that it was the use of AI?
I have not. However, the Russo brothers have been pretty vocal about using AI and being okay with that and using it as a tool and encouraging it and saying it's inevitable, which I at this point I would agree it is inevitable, but I would say it as like a that sucks. Let's see how we can, put in protections for actors and the crew and stuff to not have their work stolen or replaced by AI.
I agree.
And they're more like, let's see what we can do with it. That's not great.
So I do want to preface before we get into this little bit. We don't know for sure. There's no article that we've seen confirming that this part that we're about to talk about uses AI. It just looks
it wouldn't surprise me.
It just looks incredibly like the AI videos you can see online right now.
Yeah,
And it's on President. It was Bill Clinton, right?
I think so.
So it's the president. I believe it's Bill Clinton. If it's not Bill Clinton, then I'm sorry you watched that movie to know that. But basically, it's him talking about the war against robots, and they use him in a scene where they sign this treaty, and they have him move, and it is just so clearly not a person, and it just hits that
At least it doesn't look
uncanny
like one.
valley.
It looks like AI.
It looks, and it doesn't look animated.
And
There's
so if
nothing
it is
smooth
AI,
about it.
Yeah, if it is AI, then that sucks, and that's a whole conversation itself. And if it's not, then again, where was the budget?
Yes.
Why does it look like this?
And it also makes me think, so we're already in not our world. Does Bill Clinton need to be the president for this to work? Could you not have hired another actor to be basic president?
Yeah.
There's no need for this.
It seems like a waste of budget. Why have these characters if you're not going to do anything with it? It's like, at least with Avengers Doomsday, they're going to play characters people care about. Like, at least when it comes out that they're going to spend over $300 million on that movie, which of course they're going to.
Yeah.
At least they're actually using it with characters people care about. Why are you using these faces and not doing anything with it? You're not advertising it, at least not that I've seen, and you're not developing them. So who cares?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, cool, this so-and-so's in it. Oh, they just went off screen and never show up again. Then it just pisses you off because you're like, why did I see my favorite actor and they didn't do anything? So, I don't know. Those are all my cons. I feel like a lot of yours are similar or I agree with.
Yeah,
I just didn't want to repeat the same ones.
I heard.
So.
Yep, I think the story's weak. I think the themes are confusing as to what they're trying to say. The main cast, the main human acting cast, it is some of the weakest work I've seen from them, which I don't say lightly because I enjoy watching them in their other work. So it just clearly doesn't work here.
Yeah, I know people tend to hate on Millie Bobby Brown and say, like, she hasn't done anything or whatever. I actually really like her in Enola Holmes and Damsel, and of course I like her in Stranger Things. And so I do think it's disappointing that she's not big into movies. She's actually said quite the opposite, that she's like she has a really hard time sitting down for a 2-hour movie, which I think is shocking, but
I don't
know. This is the first time where I really don't like what she did.
I agree. I think, end of the day, teenage actors are still teenagers and victims of everything else all other teenagers are. I think there's a huge issue with the younger generations right now and their attention span with TikTok and social media making it so easy to not be invested in something for longer than 10 seconds. And I think, unfortunately, you're starting to see that come into Hollywood, where there's a film coming out this year by Finn Wolfhard, also from Stranger Things, and I think I've seen a couple of things that would suggest that he's maybe not exactly on the same level because he's already in filmmaking of something, but I think you could say there's some semblance potentially there with him and Millie Bobby Brown. Still super excited for that movie. I think it looks really fun.
It's like a camp murder mystery kind of Friday the 13th movie.
I forget what it's called, but it looks very fun.
Forgot to, but yeah, it does look fun.
And I really hope we get to see it.
And the guy who plays the chameleon in Craven, he's in it, which is fun. I liked him in that movie, and he looks like he's gonna have a fun time in the Finn Wolfhard movie. So.
Yeah. So I think it is going to be interesting with talent, this younger talent kind of aging up in Hollywood, and seeing how that influence starts to take hold. I think we're starting to see the very early stages of films being made by our generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gen Z starting to get in the mix there, and
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see this kind of change. I think 2000s have already had a huge change into the types of movies. I think 2010s has gotten into the basic kind of blockbuster is kind of what everyone's leaning on, and then that sets the standards for general audiences. Everything else feels different, and it's judged differently. It's judged in comparison to blockbusters by modern audiences. And then I'm very interested to see how this short attention span behind the camera talent goes into making these kind of projects.
You know, also, especially when the blockbuster films, which is typically they're the movies that people show up for the most, which is why they're called blockbusters, because they make a lot of money. They're starting to be longer and longer. Like Avatar, Fire and Ash, the Way of Water movie was, I think, 3.5 hours roughly. And the director, James Cameron, said this one's going to be longer. Like, I don't know if he meant by 1 minute or if he meant by another half hour. And they're going to have an intermission.
Intermission!
I don't know, but that's interesting. Like, Avengers Doomsday, the Russo brothers say they expect the first one, a Doomsday, to be 2.5 hours and Secret Wars to be 3 hours. Those are long, but people show up for them. So it's just interesting, the shift there. They're just getting longer and longer.
Yeah.
Even our attention spans are getting shorter.
I think that's actually, that's a great point with movies getting longer and audience attention span being shorter. Maybe that's a huge part of the disconnect right now between Hollywood and general audiences.
Maybe.
That's fascinating. And then maybe Gen Z is going to come in with their TikTok musicals.
Oh my
and
gosh.
change everything.
You mean the Russo brothers with their Hercules musical?
Exactly. You know, maybe the Russos were secretly Gen Zers all along.
On it, yeah. I don't know.
We're in the Gen Z now.
Oh my gosh. Let's move on.
Okay, so I think that is going to wrap it up for our non-spoiler content on The Electric State. We're about to go more into details about this movie.
Yeah.
So if you don't want it spoiled for you, feel free to put yourself
watch
to
it.
that and
Honestly,
come back.
Who cares? This is one of those movies where I'm like, you don't have to care about spoilers.
I agree. But just in case you care
Yeah.
and haven't seen it yet,
Bye.
we're about to talk about it.
Come back later.
Yeah, go watch another episode of ours.
Yeah.
But so one thing I did want to talk about, or well, rather ask, of the robots, which I think we both have agreed that they're the best part of this movie,
They're fun.
design-wise and voice work. Which one was your favorite? If you had to pick one.
I don't know. Probably Herman. But I really liked the brother as the robot too. He was nice. I don't know.
That's interesting, because the robot,
Herman.
the brother robot thing, he doesn't talk. So what do you think made him work so
I
well
liked
for
his
you?
design. I think from the beginning I liked his design because it felt like a kid. It felt trustworthy, kind. I don't know. It felt like a kid. It spoke really well when he couldn't speak.
Voiced by Alan Tudyk, the voice of Clayface from Harley Quinn,
Right.
and Dr. Phosphorus from Creature Commandos.
Okay.
So just to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Crazy. He has quite a range, I think,
He's right.
sometimes.
He's out there with that voice work. Good for him. Yeah. I definitely liked Herman though. I love Anthony Mackie. I think he did a great job.
And we didn't even realize
So-
that was Anthony Mackie until the very end, and
No.
we were like, oh my gosh, why is the best part of this Anthony Mackie?
Yeah. Maybe we would have noticed it if the movie wasn't filled with talent and it wasn't everywhere and there was like a moment to notice it and stick out. But I don't know. Maybe that's just a testament to he's a good voice actor. Maybe he should do more of that.
I think the voice work does a lot for Herman. If I had to look overall, I think there's some real winners here. I really like the Presto guy. There's this magician robot who comes out of this like child puppet stage, and he just walks around with that, which I thought was really funny. And then I also really love Jenny Slate's character as the male lady robot. loved her,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
then she was really funny whenever she came in. Feels like she could have been a character that would have helped the ensemble earlier on.
What can you do?
Obie's-
We love Jenny
not Obie.
Slate. She has such a fun voice as well.
Yes, she does. Kei Hoi Kwan's character as the robot was really fun as well,
He
and
was
then he
fun.
was used really funnily towards the end.
Again, he's one of those names and those voices where you're like, I know exactly who this is. And
Yes.
I'm very excited that they're in this. Like, same with Jenny Slate. I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly who that is. And love that for her.
Absolutely.
So,
But I will say Herman was also great
hmm
because of the design where he can get into a model that's bigger than him,
hmm
and then another one that's bigger than him, and then at the very end when we think he's dying, he opens up and
a
there's
little
just,
tiny
just
one.
a little guy.
That's why I feel like he's my favorite. I did really like that scene.
That element's really fun. How Ant-Man
Mhm. Yeah.
of him.
Yeah. It's funny.
So it's really fun designs. Like you see the robots that like make food and they're themed around that. There's like the burger head guy.
hmm
The hair cutting robot I thought looked really cool. Do you have a least favorite? Because I have a least favorite.
Is it Mr. Peanut?
It is Mr. Peanut.
He just looked so funny. I was like, stop. In the movie, roll the credits right now. I've checked out.
Yeah. I feel like we see the biggest ad sponsor.
I know. It really did feel like that. It's like you're taking me out of the movie by saying it's some alternate reality or like, post-apocalyptic world in the 90s, and then you have a character, an icon that we all know. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And
I think
like
it's more
the Bill Clinton thing, like all those things combined, it's just like it takes me out of the movie because it makes me feel like
the cat's going crazy over there.
she's like stuck.
Our
It's
manager's
okay.
freaking out.
We're getting shut down.
We lost our funding.
She's like, you're gapping too much. Move on. Anyway,
Mr. Peanut's going to pull his sponsorship.
yeah. No, we love Mr. Peanut. I'm just, it was
I feel like
just
they could have just
unfortunate
made
he
his
was in the
character
movie.
more interesting. Like, if you're going to have such a clear character that everyone
Here's where our
knows,
money came from. Not really, but
like, do something. Like, he was the most nothing character.
yeah.
I
And he
would
was
say.
like one of the most
As the robots
eye-catching
anyways.
ones.
Yeah.
And then so it was even more obvious that you didn't do anything with him. Yeah, that's a good point.
Alright.
Shall we talk about our crew? Because there's an interesting thing I found out when researching the crew.
I would love to hear that interesting thing you found about researching the crew.
So, the directors are, of course, the Russo brothers, which I think most people, well, I don't know about most people. Most people that cared at all about this movie knew that the Russo brothers directed it. And the writers were, I'm going to do my best to pronounce everyone's names. Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, which they often work together as a duo. Not always, but usually. They're known for like the Narnia movies, Captain America 1 through 3, Avengers Endgame, and
The first
Infinity
one as well.
War.
That's interesting.
Yep. And then the cinematographer was Stephen F. Winden. He did several of the Fast and Furious films and the Sonic movie.
You know, the Fast and Furious films make sense.
Yep.
Actually. That
Yeah,
makes a
that's
lot
what
of
I was saying
sense.
too when I read that. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And then the editor was Jeffrey Ford, which he also did the first 3 Captain America movies, all 4 of the Avengers films, Iron Man 3, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Werewolf by Night. All
Interesting.
Well, I was not a huge fan of Iron Man 3.
But it made $1 billion.
Yeah, so successful films overall there, except for Captain America 1, but I mean, it's your first one, so you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting.
you may notice that there's a pattern here for most of these people, except for the cinematographer, and that's that they worked on the Captain America films and they worked on some of the Avengers films together. So they've kind of been a team several times, especially when it comes to Marvel movies, and I found that interesting. And I believe one of the writers is returning, from what I saw, for Doomsday, and then the editor's also coming back for Doomsday. That's what I heard. So and that would worry me more if they hadn't created such great films. So I'm like, why especially does this whole team only seem to work in Marvel movies?
And I think it's interesting because this is a movie that is adapted from a physical book medium, same as comic books. So, Roxy,
Roxy,
don't chew the cord.
don't chew the cord. That's bad for you.
So it's interesting
yap,
to
I'll
look
get
at
her.
why it works there and not here, especially with the idea that it is the same exact kind of material that they're adapting. So it's going to be very interesting. I think it very rightfully so makes people nervous of have they lost their ability to adapt these kinds of stories potentially in the MCU as well. I feel like I would have loved to see them return in a non-Avengers movie first before they got Doomsday, honestly. I think especially after this movie, it completely warrants a look at do they still fit in the current MCU.
Right. And that's why I'm glad I saw the headline where Kevin was supposedly, if this headline was to be believed, going to keep a close eye on the Doomsday Project. And I think, he should have been doing that anyways, because if there's one movie you need to be focused on, it's an Avengers film, more than any other film or show. But especially at this point, I'm glad. I hope that's true, because I hope he's making the decision of, yeah, this makes me nervous, because he seemed to work before. Have they lost it, or do they still have it, but only for Marvel films? Like, let me keep a close eye on this.
Really interesting.
Yes, which we're going to have to look at how good the movie is or bad the movie is, because it's going to make a lot of money. So we're not going to be able to look
The
at
real
that,
thing is going to
unfortunately.
be consensus of audience.
Yes,
and
because
critics did like most of the Avengers movies as well.
And the second and third Captain America movie, they liked those. So they made a lot of money, but they were also good. And so we'll have to look at, it's going to make a lot of money, but is it good?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see. Does it have depth?
And then also a question, will Marvel care if it makes that money back?
If it's poorly received? I think it'll be interesting if Secret Wars takes a hit for that, or Spider-Man 4 takes a hit.
You know
because
what
of
I
that.
think? I don't think I think if they made $1 billion, but people didn't like it, I honestly don't think that's going to stop Secret Wars from making $1 billion or Spider-Man. But you know what I do think will affect? All of the other Marvel movies.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's going to be the biggest potential harm. I don't think there's anything that would stop them from. I don't think they have the ability to kill Avengers and big team up movies for Marvel.
It's true.
But I think, even though they're not even making one, if this movie is received horribly, they could potentially kill
anything else
content that is not a huge event for Marvel.
It could. It's going to set a bad precedent for sure. I just don't know. It's going to depend on if the reviews are bad, how bad are they? So, I don't know. That's a discussion I kind of look forward to having and kind of don't look forward to having. So.
It's going to be... honestly, I really enjoy MCU content, so I feel I have a lot of stakes in that conversation. So I do look forward to it, but...
I don't know, man.
It's like an anxious...
I will say, I did think about this, and I think the general audience doesn't really know, nor do they care about who's directing or making the movie. So I don't think that's going to affect them at all. But if you just look at the MCU...
but they're going to look at it as the MCU putting this out, not a director.
Right. So maybe that's why they're pushing RDJ so much, is because people like him. And so they'll show up for that. They'll show up for the cast, the face that they see in the movie.
Hi, I'm here to see the Jason Statham movie.
Oh my gosh. Unfortunately, somebody, my co-host, dragged me along to A Working Man. Don't know why. I still don't know why you were ever interested in that film. And that wasted 2 hours of my life I'll never get back. But when we were leaving, there was this guy who was who was trying to buy a ticket. He was like, I have a ticket to that Jason Statham movie. First of all, he didn't know the name of the movie, which I was like, whatever. And then I wouldn't say he was getting aggravated that she didn't know, but it was just more like, the Jason Statham movie, Jason Statham. And I'm like, she's not getting it, dude. You got to start Googling, okay? And anyways, and then they figured it out because we knew what it was, so we told them it's A Working Man. And then we realized when he got his ticket and left that there was a stack of posters
for The Working Man
one
right next to
foot
him.
to the right of him, which they were facing him. So I put that way more on him rather than the worker.
For sure.
For sure. I'm like, you're the one who knows Jason Statham. You see his face and his name right there with the title of the movie. I just thought it was funny.
That's
I
really
mean, anyways, moving on.
what were we saying?
General audience is not caring about who's making
Right,
the movie,
right,
rather
right.
who's in it. And maybe that's why they did the whole chair thing, because it worked. You can say what you want about the format. It worked really well for them. So, I don't know, man. And now people are excited. They know who's going to be in the movie. They have faces.
And and people talk about the MCU not connecting enough. Hey, you want to be caught up? Watch these
People are already
ensemble
being
movies.
like, oh, so Avengers is just going to be like this, and it's I think like some DreamWorks thing. I don't know what the
I've seen
video is.
it's
I'm
from
like,
Space Jam,
shut
A New Legacy.
up. It's Avengers Doomsday. Of course you're going to have all these Avengers. What do you mean? Why? How on earth? How dare you complain, honestly, that an Avengers movie has a lot of characters from other
After
worlds?
Endgame.
Really?
Play back the
Really?
portal scene.
Really? They'd be the same people who loved that scene,
Yeah.
and now you're going to complain about it? Whatever. You can't tell me that you're disappointed that you're going to have the Avengers, which were inevitable. X-Men, like, even if some people are not excited for it, I guarantee you that generation of people who grew up with those movies are excited for that.
Yeah,
I'm even
it's
excited
a lot
for
of
it.
very
Fantastic
cross-generational cast.
Yeah.
Which I think is going to do it's a really great idea.
I will say, though, especially for the X-Men, when you have such iconic female characters, they do not have they have 5 out of 27, and I'm bringing that back up because that's not bringing in a lot of your female audience, which has shown to show up, aka the Scarlet Witch for WandaVision, which did really well and had a lot of viewership, and of course Multiverse of Madness, and then Agatha All Along was well received and did well and was viewed a lot, and they've shown that they matter, that they show up, and you didn't give them a lot to work with at all.
Yeah.
Especially for the X-Men. I'm like, how do you not have Storm or Jean Grey? And I know
Gambit
Grace,
and no Rogue.
Right. Grace
So-
Randolph was talking about this, and she did say, which I was thinking this too, like, we're just both very much hoping that the only reason they didn't announce it is because they were still holding out on a contract, and
I believe that.
hopefully, as she said, this kind of feedback convinces those actresses to join.
I don't think so.
I hope that's what's happening, and not that they didn't consider them.
I hope Halle Berry isn't
Halle
going
Berry
to go make another Never Let Go.
She has to come back for this movie, girl. Girl, this is your moment to shine. Everyone loves you. You're not doing
You
anything
will
better
never-
right now.
You would probably never be more loved than if you returned for this movie.
Right. Exactly. But also the actresses for Jean Grey and Rogue, too.
Also.
So,
But anyways, if you want to hear more about this conversation, go. We have a whole episode out about the casting announcement for Avengers
Yes.
Doomsday. If you're interested in this little riff off, definitely go check that out.
anyways, I guess we could say you wrote down the feedback for this movie.
Yeah. So on IMDb, and I have.
That's
pulled up.
not a bad score. It got a 6 out of 10.
It's dropped to a 5.9 as of today.
5.9, so much lower.
And
I
then
thought you were going to say 5. I was like, oh, yeah, that's
So
a
the
good drop.
big headline before the movie came out was that audiences absolutely hated this movie on Rotten Tomatoes with
Which
a
is-
15%
Critics,
for critic score. Yes.
not audience.
So a lot of
And they did.
people, I think a lot of the viewership, at least of the online population, was hate watching. And can it really be
Right.
this bad?
But then the audience
And then the
score,
audience score, right, is a 70%.
which is not
And a lot of
bad.
people talking about it's a movie you can watch and turn your brain off. And I've
Which
heard
is scary. I mean, it's fine, but there's so many like comfort movies that you can watch that to turn your brain off that are still good, and this is not one of them.
And I think in the House of Cinema podcast where they talked about this movie, they talked about how they didn't like the idea of turn your brain off because your brain is
Well, I think
always
that's
on.
Fine, but I understand the fear with this movie being a movie. People are tuning in so they can turn their brain off because it's not good. There's, like I said, there's so many movies you can tune in, turn your brain off, and it's still good. I have so many of those movies and they're great. I don't know. That's
Like there
I
should
don't
be
think there's
something that
anything
you're
wrong.
watching for, and there's truly nothing that this movie it truly excels in.
Right. Because
So
if you want to turn your brain off, like, what exactly does that mean? Do you want a movie that's just going to comfort you? Again, comfort movie? Because I don't think this movie would do that. I don't see
agree.
any world where it would do that to a person. Or do you want just something in the background to play on your phone? And then that brings up the conversation of attention span again, of you're not even watching the movie at that point.
yeah.
So why are you giving credit to this movie? You're saying it's, in that case, you'd be saying it's so boring, I don't even have to pay attention to it. I'm just scrolling on my phone. It's like, that's not great either. So I don't know, man.
Something I did want to bring up while we're talking about IMDb. IMDb has listed the 2 taglines of this movie. Would you like to hear
Yes.
them?
Yes.
The top one is Rage with the Machines.
What?
Rage with the Machines.
What?
Ba-da-ba-ba. Go get a robot friend. Embrace AI.
And listen to, is that the second one, or you
No,
just
no,
okay?
no, no.
Okay, I was about to say, oh my gosh.
The second one is Not the 90s You Remember.
Except it has Bill Clinton and Mr. Peanut.
Honestly, I wasn't in the 90s. I didn't remember either of those 2 people, so...
I wasn't born yet. I'm sorry.
That'd be interesting. I wonder how people from the 90s feel about this movie specifically. Because I feel
true.
like this is a movie that's clearly aimed, I would say, probably right at Gen Zers. And
I don't
so,
know.
maybe, I don't know. I feel like maybe it is supposed to appeal to the idea of what people remember the 90s as, but as people who lived through the 90s, I wonder how they perceive this movie.
Yeah, I don't know. And then the Metacritic score was 29, which is not good.
Yeah. I will say 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's a little low because I think I judged it about maybe a 2, I think is where I put it.
I think that's what I did too.
So
One
I
and
think
a half
it's
or 2.
I think maybe it even went as high as
'Cause
like
I
a
like
3.
the robots.
Like there's some things that
You went as high as a 3? Oh, well, you do
I
3
think-
out of 10. I do out of 5.
yes, it is
so
minor out of 10.
That's different. Yeah.
So, I think there are things that could be taken away from this movie, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, these designs are really cool. I would want whoever designed them to look at what I'm doing. I
Mm-hmm.
think there is some talent here worth saving, for sure. Is it a lot? No. But unfortunately, where this script is the weakest, we already know where they're going next. Like, where this whole project is weakest, we already know where they're going next. And it's another $100 billion or $100 million Avengers movie. So
300, 400 million.
yeah.
Oof.
So it's interesting.
I am already shaking in my boots for the day they release that budget, because you know it's going to be so high. Because if they're already saying, there's already talks that RDJ alone is getting 100 million. Like, are you kidding me? I love RDJ too. No actor does. I don't think there's a single actor out there that I'd be like, yeah, one movie, you deserve $100 million. That's just, I can't even fathom.
At least on the front end.
Yeah.
I think,
I
and
can't
I
even
think especially
fathom
with
that.
an ensemble movie like this, where it's like you are preventing other talent from getting this. Like, we're probably going to see articles about how some people in the cast didn't get a lot of money for the great work they did here,
And
and
maybe
you are
that's-
going to be remembered for the one who got
Right.
almost $100,000 for this.
And maybe that's why some of the actresses that weren't announced are holding out, because they
I
deserve to
believe
be
that. I
paid
remember
more.
hearing about
Like Elizabeth Olsen.
for Infinity War and Endgame and hearing about how little she got for those movies and being flabbergasted.
Mm-hmm. I think absolutely after WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness, she definitely deserves to have the power to say, I deserve way more than I'm getting. And I don't know if
Absolutely.
they'll give it to her. I think they're idiots if they don't. But
It is
I don't know.
with Elizabeth Olsen. I think it's an interesting conversation because I love her. I love her work.
I mean, I know she's not an Oscar winner, so I know that
Well, not
holds
even
some
Oscar
weight.
winner, but she doesn't. The thing is, she just struggles so hard to find an audience outside of Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, similar to the Russo brothers. Well, not an audience, but But she does. That's the thing. She does
She has
such
such-
great work in
that's
almost
the big
everything that she
difference.
does. That is a
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
difference. I
Yeah.
should not compare her to the Russos.
Yeah, she does so great, and I just wish
She's
that
like the reverse
audience
of the
followed
Russos.
her. But I think at the end of the day, while they love Elizabeth Olsen, they love the Scarlet Witch more and what she does with that.
Yeah.
And so her as a character does more. But then again, she's the one playing her, so when it comes to the Scarlet Witch, she deserves to demand for big pay.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know. Her and Tom Holland, both. Because they were, Wanda and Spider-Man were trending top 10 that day, even after it was announced that they were not in it. Or at least not confirmed right now. So, yeah, people want them. People demand them. And I think they should demand big pay for that. So,
Absolutely. Oh, when Tom Holland, I'm sure, gets paid huge paychecks.
yeah.
But until they're gonna give Wanda a Scarlet Witch movie to prove what a
It
big
was
draw
her.
that she is.
Yeah, it was
I think
her and
Marvel
not
will
Doctor
always be like,
Strange.
oh, well, you were with Benedict Cumberbatch, or you were with Paul Bettany. These
So annoying.
huge names outside of our franchise. It's like
People like them, but like
they're super likable. I like them, but
it was the Scarlet Witch. It's like Disney trying to be like Rachel Zegler's the reason the Snow White flopped, even though every single
No
review,
other reason.
even the negative reviews are like, this movie's the worst movie ever made. Not Rachel Zegler though. Blah 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 blah. Like all of them are. No, I haven't seen a single negative review for her, and they're like, she's the reason this movie flopped. Like whatever. Whatever. I'm so glad that hate campaign is backfiring on Variety and Disney.
good.
As it should.
So, hold on.
So I did talk about that it did hit number 1, but it only debuted at about 25 million views versus The Gray Man got 41 million views. And compared to Adolescence, it's a big hit critically, but it also debuted at 24 million despite much less advertisement, no big names, and likely a much smaller budget. I don't know that for sure, but I mean, come on. We all know. Anyways, and it was just so much more creative and so much better overall. I hope a lot of that cast gets work, especially that kid. I mean, that kid's already getting work in Wuthering Heights, so I don't know if that's quite the movie that he deserved because it's already getting hate, but oh well.
What kind of project do you think would you recommend for him to do next? Do you think after going to? It would. I think there will be an outrage if he's not Emmy nominated after this.
Absolutely.
I feel like because right after we watched that,
You know,
I was saying I feel like in 5 or 6 years we're gonna see him be the lead of some long-running Netflix show.
I agree. I think he needs something. I was saying this the other day. He needs to stay far, far away from the Harry Potter series. Don't do it,
yeah.
dude. I don't care what money they're offering you. Don't do it. You look perfectly like Harry Potter. Don't do it, please. Please don't do it, please. Because I was gonna say he deserves something like Walker Scobell, I think his last name is.
Yes.
For Percy Jackson. He
Jackson.
deserves something like that. I just don't. And then that Harry Potter re-popped into my mind. I was like, no, stay away. Oh, and he's British too. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, he's so gonna be Harry Potter. I hate that that's in my mind now.
Interesting.
Anyways, that's a good
That'll be
point.
However, I don't know. I think it's interesting to point out the kind of conversation Adolescence is having, and it would be very against the message of his big
That's
break
true.
to
That's
go
true.
right into that. So
Mhm.
he is a kid, so he might not recognize that, but I think anyone who's a big fan of his will. I think
Because I
that's-
mean, he's a kid, so he's not gonna know that people are already hating on this show. Ugh.
and honestly, he might not recognize why.
Right.
So.
Right. I wouldn't blame it on him at
No.
all. I just don't want that for him.
Yeah.
Because I know what that would mean for him, and he doesn't probably. I don't know. I hope he stays far, far away, but I do think he deserves like a career path like Walker did for Percy Jackson with the with Ryan Reynolds movie Pipeline to Percy Jackson.
that
was great.
pipeline.
He deserves that.
That
I
famous,
hope.
famous pipeline.
I
So you're
hope
saying he
that,
needs to play a young Ryan Reynolds?
Well, young somebody.
Ooh.
You should play a young Daniel Radcliffe.
Ooh, You know who
I
I
don't
kind
know.
of you know who I kind
I
of
mean,
thought
he's
of?
already playing a
And I'm not-
young Jacob Elordi, so maybe that's his little pipeline, and then he goes into a franchise of
Interesting.
some
You know
sort.
who I was thinking young of? Young David
He-
Tennant.
Yeah, well, and also he could join Percy Jackson now that I think about it.
So the only character I know coming up is like major one, and I think they've announced that he's going to be in season 3 is Nico.
He's not going to play Nico.
Okay, I thought he was,
has
might be
to
a little
be,
young. for
well, because also, well, no, Nico's pretty young. That's not the
Okay.
problem. It's the problem that he's white and British, and Nico's like Italian. So, and that's very and very, very important to his character. It's big. I mean,
Interesting.
people will rightfully riot if he's casted as a white boy, and I promise you, Rick Riordan will not do that. I have way too much faith in Rick to do that. So,
Rick.
I wish he could kind of hit pause for a second because I feel like he would be a fun Jason, which I know
Derulo.
his like, which I know Thalia is, I think, a black actress. So people were saying Jason needs to be too, but they're demigods, so they have like the same godly parent, but not. I don't know. So maybe not Jason. I don't know who he could play, but something from that sequel series could be fun.
Oh, the.
But I feel like at that point he would
I
be
actually
too
read
old.
the first book of that, not realizing it was related to Percy Jackson until they got to the camp.
It's a good series. I like it.
They got the dragon.
It gets better. That series gets better. I think.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Anyway, so circling back to the Electric State, I would like maybe to read some reviews of the Electric State
Okay.
to see kind of how they gel with you, how you feel about them. So let's start with a top critic review. This is from Shirley Lee with The Atlantic. The Electric State is so transparently eager to satisfy as many demographics of viewers as possible that it proves its own message, that a world dependent on business interests and technological
I love where this is going.
optimization dulls artistic potential and human ingenuity.
That goes into a big discussion of the Russo brothers and what they care about. They've made a lot of comments about loving Netflix and working with them because it's like a machine rather than art. And I hate that that's where we're going. I hate that's where the Russo brothers, such big name directors who have made good films before. I hate that's where they're going because I understand that at the end of the day, films, at least some of them, need to make money. Some films need to make money to, make up for the smaller films that are inevitably not going to make as much money. I don't think that's ever going to change, or that it should, because that system works. But when we go into the system of you're not even caring to make art or make a blockbuster good.
And I think the biggest thing is look at
At
Winter
least
Soldier
try.
and the themes in that movie.
Yeah.
And they're executed so well. So
Yeah.
they can work, in any case, in a machine-esque environment
And still
and
be
put
good.
out a good output. So you
Yes.
have done that before.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's why would you not care about making good art and just caring about working within a system will generate money, which didn't even work in this case. So I don't know. I think that shows that at the end of the day, audience want to see movies that entertain them. And I know audience liked this movie more than critics, but this is no Avengers film. This is no Winter Soldier.
The idea, I'm surprised it got up to a 70. I was expecting like 60, where I
Yeah.
think is like you want to talk about something that is watchable for modern audiences. That's where I'd put that. Like,
yeah.
as someone
70 is definitely too high, especially when you look at other movies that have come out recently. That's crazy.
A positive critic review. This one is Mark Jackson from the Epoch Times. I think I'm saying that right. The always amusing Chris Pratt and the hugely charismatic Millie Bobby Brown play characters who adventure with cute 1950s style robots. It's great escapism. 3 out of 5. Interesting. Your thoughts?
I wish they were as charming in this movie as they usually are. I disagree that they are.
Yeah.
I think this, like you said, this is some of their worst work.
I'm trying
and
to
that's
think.
disappointing.
Millie Bobby Brown, I think I can definitely say it's her worst work yet.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I've seen a Chris Pratt role that
mean-
I liked less.
One of his worst, for sure.
I'm trying to think that through if I can think of any example. But escapism, I think, is an interesting term to use. Do you feel like going into this future where
Again,
machines and soulless businesses are taking over our industry, do you think that's escapism today?
Why is that escapism? And it's like, if that's the reality that we're going towards, why is that escapism? When, again, why is your comfort movie such a dull movie?
And
Why
you know what
is this a comfort movie
Another
to
thing
you?
I think is interesting with the idea of this being escapism is I think it also leads into the idea of the lack of, oh, what's the phrase? The idea that people can watch something and not understand what it's trying to say. Oh, it's a phrase. It's used so much on film Twitter.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna kill me.
It's okay.
The Garfield movie. Gosh.
Well, he did better in that movie, I will say.
I can believe it.
That's not saying a whole lot, but anyways. I don't know. I think that's scary if that's what we're going towards. So, because we also just had the conversation in Captain America 4 about our audiences shying away from, you know, political themes in movies because they're tired of what's happening politically in the real world. But then they're saying things like, this is my escapism movie, and it's a post-apocalyptic world that's low-key kind of similar to what we're going towards right now in certain ways. So I just don't understand the dissonance on that.
Okay, this is another review. And don't worry, we'll end on a bad one.
Okay.
This is an anonymous
It's only
review on
proper.
Rotten Tomatoes that was rated 4.5 stars
Out of 10?
out of 5. Out of 5
Oh.
stars. 4.5 out of 5
that's-
stars.
Positive,
Yes.
I guess.
4.5
Okay.
out of 5, yeah.
Okay, we'll do this one and then one more negative,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it.
And we'll be quick on these ones. Honestly, I really liked it a lot. It's the kind of movie that someone who loves post-apocalyptic and dystopian settings would enjoy. I loved how the robots were initially presented as somewhat heartless and the ones who started the war, but later they feel more human than the actual humans. You end up empathizing with their motivations and what drives them. A very good movie, definitely worth watching. To this reviewer, I say, I'm going to guess you've never watched The Creator. And you should watch The Creator
Yes.
if you think that's what this
Yes.
movie does well.
The only point I agree with is that at a certain point the robots feel more human and relevant than the humans. I agree with that.
Yeah. It feels more performative
And that's
than what
one
the
of the
humans are giving.
only positive things we have to say about the movie. So, gosh, I'm so happy for them that they enjoyed
I'm
the
glad
movie.
they enjoyed it.
I'm glad somebody enjoyed
Man,
it.
A lot of 5 stars on here, actually.
That's crazy.
Okay, this
So, Our last negative. review?
negative audience review from Matt H. I wanted to like this movie. Name actors. Yes. Robot wars with humans. Yes. Mr. Frickin' Peanut leading the robots. Heck yes. Lots of talking. Not a lot of action. I don't mind lots of dialogue if it goes somewhere. More unbelievable acting. They simply do not act like anyone in their situation would act.
Yep.
It takes away from the movie. It was often boring.
Yep. I agree with every point because you have great elements. You have a great sales pitch, which I don't think they even used very well. And then you don't do anything with them.
Yeah.
So-
And then I think that whole action sequence at the end feels super tacked on and unnecessary, especially considering they snuck into the headquarters anyways.
I don't know.
So much of this
Felt
movie
like-
just feels like it didn't need to happen.
I agree. It was a waste of my time.
And then also just something that just shoots into my head of when I was watching this movie. I kept thinking, wow, they put so much makeup on Millie Bobby Brown. It feels like she can't help but vogue in most of her
And you
shots
know
because of
what?
all of that makeup.
Right. And you know what? They did the same thing in Damsel. She was like, her
remember that
dress
being-
was so torn. Her hair was all like dirty. Everything was dirty, but she was always serving face. And you know what? In that movie, I didn't care. In
Yeah.
this movie, I did.
Because, I mean, at least in there, she's playing a princess.
Exactly. At least she's a princess. In this movie,
one, it's like, I already hate
I don't
everything
know.
else.
And I feel like in Damsel, at least her hair was kind of
Sure.
rough, and in this movie, her hair was perfect.
Yeah.
So maybe that was another element, but ugh. Ugh, I don't know. Not that Damsel was like a fantastic movie, but
Yes.
it was better than this.
Yes.
So I actually was entertained by that movie.
I agree.
Anyways, and then our last question is, does Netflix care about negative reviews? Because I don't think there's any denying that they want Academy Awards and they care about that. But I added, do they bet on that with selective movies? But then why wouldn't they bet on that with a 320? Like, why spend the money if you're not going to get anything out of it? So I just don't understand. Maybe they just blindly trusted the Russo brothers. I mean, they have
that
said
had to have happened.
they have said that they also like Netflix because they get left alone.
We'll see if that continues to happen now.
I'm so glad Kevin has learned from that and said, I'm not doing that. I will not be doing that. At least I hope that's what's
That
happening.
is the thing I'm not going to do.
Ooh, let's see what this is what's happened when you don't, watch them like a hawk. I'm going to watch them like a hawk. We love Kevin and his sniping. He's threatening sniping.
He's gonna shoot a sniper shot through their first draft.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And that was the warning shot.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, I do think they care about negative reviews, but like you said, you brought this up a couple days ago, that Netflix operates at like a constant loss.
Yes,
Which
that's
is
like their business
interesting.
model.
I really wonder how that works. How long can you keep that up? Because at some point it's got to be profitable. And if it's never profitable, how does that work?
I think the idea is they constantly just have so much stuff working, and then whenever they get the subscriber base from that project in, they're already working on the next handful of projects. So it's an interesting model for sure, and it's very unique because even the other people trying to get into streaming are nowhere near Netflix's output level.
Well, and I think it'll be interesting if they give the Russo brothers another film. Because the Gray Man at the end of the day got way more views than this movie did and wasn't received as poorly. So I think the big
If I was
big
Netflix,
contender.
I would, especially after their next Avengers movies, unless those don't make $1 billion for whatever reason, in whatever universe that happens, I would not give them a blank check. I would be like, here is
Or
100
just,
million tops.
give
Prove
them
to me you
total
can make a good
ratings.
movie again.
Right.
Like, I
right.
think they really need to work at establishing, especially outside of the MCU. I would argue in the MCU they needed to do this before they got this gig. But they need to prove that they can still make movies that people want to watch before they can start making big movies again.
Yeah.
So, I hope,
Well,
if I was
maybe-
Netflix, I would not give them that blank check.
We were talking about this. Maybe they should have done that with Captain America 4. Had them work on Captain America 4 since they've done 2 other films.
And
Can
they were the
make
ones who gave
people-
him the shield in that
Right.
in Endgame.
Can they make people come back and return and care about Sam? Which I feel like people do care about Sam, but we had a whole discussion about Captain America.
Watch
4,
our
but-
Captain America Brave New World episode.
Yes. But yeah, that would have been a good test movie to see if that worked. But oh well.
Yeah.
Oh well. Too late.
I guess we'll never know.
I guess we'll never know. But yeah,
But
that's
is that everything we had?
all my thoughts. Yeah.
Okay. So, if you had to pick the worst part of this movie, the very worst.
Honestly, probably just anytime Mr. Peanut showed up, I wanted to roll my eyes because I knew, at least after the first time he showed up, I was like, okay, you got my attention. What are you gonna do with it? And then they didn't, and then they did it again, and then they did it again, and I was like, okay. When I'm tuned out and Chris Pratt can't even make me laugh or keep me entertained, that's how you know it's bad.
Yeah.
So
Looking at you, Garfield the movie.
I like Chris Pratt's stuff. I don't like him as a person very much, but I think he does He makes me laugh, man, in movies. A lot of movies. He's very entertaining.
When he plays that Chris Pratt character.
So then when
He has
he's
charm.
boring, that's how you know you messed up as directors.
You know something I don't think we ever touched on? The Neurocasters.
The what?
The Neurocasters. The
What
things
did I
that the
know?
population was putting on their head to control
Right.
robots. And the whole idea.
Ugh.
And that's another thing that we'll be brief on, because what's our time right now?
120.
We'll still keep it brief. The idea that society is trying to lock in and they would rather die in a machine than live life.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, after we're done here, we're going to go work on our TikTok musical with Disney. I think there's just so much
There's such a disconnect there.
disconnect to the themes they're trying to talk about in this movie, and it's just, dude, you're the
And
bad guys.
Not them having Millie Bobby Brown be like, oh, I'm sorry, I actually want to live in the real world. And her being the outlier, and you're just like, okay. And then they
I'm
didn't
not
do
like-
anything interesting with
I'm not
that.
like other girls.
I'm not like other girls.
I live with robots.
full beat on, observing face in a post-apocalyptic world and hair.
No, ooh.
Anyways.
And then another thing, I don't think we talked about the brother a lot.
Yeah.
He, I think, was one of the worst actors here.
Unfortunately.
Which, immediately with
mean,
that
I can
first
have
scene, I
some
was
grace.
like, oh my gosh.
I can have some grace with kid actors, with child actors, but when it's already so boring and you have such bad performances and you're clearly the outlier of the worst, I mean, that's rough.
Yeah.
So, but it is what it is. There's plenty of kid actors that started off not so great and then developed in.
And you know what? Maybe it
Much
also
better.
doesn't help that we were watching Adolescence around the same time.
That is true. I mean, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe it was just bad in comparison to.
But I don't know.
Adolescence, but-
Watching it, I was immediately like, wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if these lines could have been saved by anyone, but there was no chance it was going to be saved by you.
No, but again, yeah, the directors. It's not like they brought out good performances anyways, so I wouldn't even totally blame it on him. I think it could have been better because we've seen the other actors be better under better directors. So we just needed better directors. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
And then the robot designs were... Okay, so the robot designs were cool. The drone designs were awful.
Yeah, I agree with that.
With the little
Good
human
distinction
head.
there.
Little Coleman Domingo head before he gets shot up. So sad that he was a part of this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, poor
Ugh.
guy.
I hope he got paid better. He needs an Oscar, not this.
He needs an Oscar. He also needs a better paycheck. Go be Norman Osborn in Spider-Man 4. We would love that. Oh my God, we would love that.
That'd be great.
And there's so many great options. Like, oh, you could pull. I think his name is Caleb Laughlin. I think the guy who plays. Oh, what's his name in Stranger Things? Oh, I don't remember his name, and you wouldn't know it either because you're a loser and haven't seen it. Oh, why do I not remember him? It's not Dustin. That's somebody else. His name is Lucas. His character name in Stranger Things. Yes, Caleb McLaughlin.
To be Harry?
He would be a fun Harry.
That'd be interesting.
I've been waiting
I
for
think
him
he's a
to
bit younger
get...
than Tom Holland, though, so that would be a different dynamic than I think we traditionally see
Let
with
me
them.
see. Let me see. He's 23, and I think Tom Holland's 27, maybe? I feel like
I'd have to see them standing together before I could be sold on it.
28.
Man,
I don't
Tom
know.
Holland's almost 30. That's
He's an old
crazy.
man. He's an old man.
At 30?
Yeah.
Man, we
Old
already
guy.
we ought to put him out to pasture.
It's fine. It's fine. I don't know. I could be excited. Because at the end of the day, I mean, Tom Holland is still playing a young adult. But he doesn't really look like a young adult. Anyways, that's a conversation for another time. But yeah, I would love if Coleman Domingo took that role.
So I think that's everything we have for this episode on the
Yeah.
electric stage.
Do you notice that everything more interesting in the discussion had nothing
Nothing
to do with
the
the
electric
state?
stage. It's crazy
Ugh.
when you have a movie that brings up so much discussion, but it's not about
Your
the stuff your
movie.
movie's talking about.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Ugh.
So let us know what you thought of that movie. And
If you haven't watched
you-
it, don't.
if
Well,
you have
do what
seen
you
it,
want, but
let us know why you chose to watch that movie. I'm
Yeah.
very curious why people choose to put that movie on. What's the draw for you?
And if it was your escapism movie, please tell me why. I can't even imagine, but I'm serious. Like,
Yeah,
tell me
spell it
why.
out
I
for
would
us.
love. I would
Explain
love
it to
know
us
your
like we're
reason.
children.
Why is that your comfort movie versus like a rom-com or a comedy, like, I don't know, The Hangover or something, Fight Club? Like, I don't know, man. Those are a bunch of like people's favorite movies. Wolf on Wall Street. Now I'm thinking of like guy movies, but whatever. Anyways, like my comfort movies are like Pretty Woman, Dirty Dancing, Little Women, like
And she's forced me to watch all of
the
them.
girly movies. Forced you to watch some of the best movies ever made? You're welcome.
And this is the energy she has the entire time we're watching.
But why, like, that's my point, is why is this movie a comfort movie and not movies like that? Or maybe it is. Maybe it's added into that. I don't know. Tell me why. Tell me
Explain it to
why.
us. But we'll go ahead and end it here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I have been Luke.
I'm Alicia.
And thank you for watching Not So Straight Nerds.